Good morning, students. Today we are going to learn from English literature the third chapter, that is, Maggie Cuts Her Hair. This story is written by George Eliot, a famous writer. George Eliot was the pen name of Mary Ann Evans, one of the leading English novelists of the 19th century. In reality, George Eliot is a lady. She took this name in order to write and publish her works because in those days women were not given importance or given chances in literature. Some of her works includes The Meal on the Floors and The Middlemarch. And this lesson is an extract from the novel The Meal on the Floors by George Eliot. Before we begin the lesson, let me ask you one thing. Have you ever taken a decision which made you regret later on? Maybe yes or maybe no. In this lesson, the protagonist is a little girl named Maggie. She regrets for her decision of cutting her hair. She cuts her hair because she was irritated by the scoldings of her mother and so decided to cut her long locks, that is her hair, and Tom, her brother, helps her in her decision but everything went wrong. Maggie was ashamed of her deeds, but at last her father supported her. Now, let us read the chapter. Maggie cuts her hair. Maggie chops off her hair with her brother Tom's help in an act of rebellion. How does her family react when they find out? The Dodsons were certainly a handsome family, and Mrs. Gletch was not the least handsome of the sisters. As she sat in Mrs. Tulliver's armchair, no impartial observer could have denied that for a woman of 50 she had a very comely face and figure, though Tom and Maggie considered their Aunt Gletch as the type of ugliness. "Hetty," said Aunt Gletch, with loud emphasis, "do little boys and girls come into a room without taking notice of their uncles and aunts? That wasn't the way when I was a little girl." "Go and speak to your aunts and uncles, my dears," said Mrs. Tulliver, looking anxiously and melancholy. She wanted to whisper to Maggie a command to go and have her hair brushed. "Well, and how do you do? And I hope you are good children, are you?" said Aunt Gletch. "Look up, Tom, look up. Boys as go to boarding schools should hold their heads up. Look at me now." Tom declined that pleasure apparently, for he tried to draw his hand away. "Put your hair behind your ears, Maggie, and keep your frock on your shoulder." Aunt Gletch always spoke to them in this loud, emphatic way, as if she considered them deaf. So from these lines we come to know that there is a Dodson's family, and they are a handsome family, and Mrs. Tulliver is the mother of Maggie and Tom, and Mrs. Gletch is their aunt, and their aunts and uncles have come to their home, and when her aunt notices them, she compares herself with those children, that is Maggie and Tom. She tells them that she never used to be like that. When her aunts and uncles comes, she used to keep a notice of them. Here the word girls means girls, and emphatic means stress on words while speaking. Okay, here then Mrs. Tulliver, that is their mother, tells them to go and speak to their aunts and uncles, and she also wants to tell Maggie to brush her hair. From this line, we also come to know that Tom and Maggie doesn't like their aunt because she always spoke to them in a loud voice. And very especially to Maggie, she tells to put her hair behind her ears and to keep her frock on her shoulder. I think the girl has too much hair. I'd have it thinned and cut shorter, sister, if I was you. It isn't good for her health. No, no, said Mr. Tulliver. The child's healthy enough. There's nothing ails her. But it would be as well as Bessie would have the child's hair cut, so as it would lie smooth. Maggie, said Mrs. Tulliver, beckoning Maggie to her and whispering in her ear, go and get your hair brushed, do, for shame. I told you not to come in without going to Martha first. You know I did. Tom, come with me, whispered Maggie, pulling his sleeves as she passed him. Tom followed Maggie upstairs into her mother's room and saw her go at once to a drawer, from which she took out a large pair of scissors. What are they for, Maggie? Said Tom, feeling his curiosity awakened. Maggie answered by seizing her front locks and cutting them straight across the middle of her forehead. Oh, my buttons! Maggie, you'll catch it, exclaimed Tom. You'd better not cut any more off. Sniff went the great scissors again while Tom was speaking, and he couldn't help feeling it was rather good fun. Maggie would look so queer. Here, Tom, cut it behind for me, said Maggie, excited by her own daring and anxious to finish the deed. In these lines, Mrs. Gledge advises her sister, that is Mrs. Tulliver, to cut Maggie's hair like that of Bessie, her daughter, and tells them that it is not good for her health as she has a thick hair. But Maggie's father tell her that nothing ails her. She is healthy enough. Then Maggie's mother tells Maggie to go and brush her hair. Then Maggie goes along with Tom, and when they reached to their mother's room, they took a pair of scissors and Maggie cut her front hairs, and also tells Tom to cut her hair from the back. At first, Tom told Maggie that she will be in trouble if she cut her hair. But later on, when he starts to cut her hair, he feels like fun, and so he cuts her hair. As he was very excited and he got to use the scissor for the first time. Never mind, make haste, said Maggie, giving a little stamp with her foot. Her cheeks were quite flushed. The black locks were so thick, nothing could be more tempting to a lady who had already tasted the forbidden pleasure of cutting the pony's mane. You'll catch it, you know, said Tom, nodding his head and hesitating a little as he took the scissors. The locks fell heavily on the floor, and Maggie stood cropped in a jagged, uneven manner, but with a sense of clearness and freedom, as if she had emerged from a wood into the open plain. Oh, Maggie, said Tom, jumping round her and slapping his knees as he laughed. Oh, my buttons! What a queer thing you look. Look at yourself in the glass. Maggie felt an unexpected pang. She didn't want her hair to look pretty. That was out of the question. She only wanted people to think her a clever little girl and not to find fault with her. But now, when Tom began to laugh at her and said she looked like an idiot, the affair had quite a new aspect. She looked in the glass, and still Tom laughed and clapped his hands. Maggie's cheeks began to pale and her lips to tremble a little. "Oh, Maggie, you'll have to go down to dinner directly," said Tom. "Oh, my! Don't laugh at me, Tom," said Maggie in a passionate tone, with an outburst of angry tears, stamping and giving him a push. In these lines, Tom hesitates to cut Maggie's hair and tells Maggie you'll catch it. This means you will be in trouble. But Maggie says never mind, just help in cutting her hair quickly. Here haste means act quickly. The word stood cropped means stood with cut hair, and jagged means with rough, sharp, and points sticking out. So after cutting her hair, she felt she was free and clear, as if she had emerged from a wood into the open plain. Then Tom laughs at her, slapping his knees, and tells Maggie to look herself into the glass, and tells her that she looked like an idiot, and tells her to go down for the dinner directly. Then she looked herself in the mirror, and at the same time as Tom was laughing at her, she felt very bad. Her cheeks began to pale and her lips to tremble a little, and tells Tom not to laugh at her. She didn't want her hair to look pretty, but she only wants people to think her that she is a clever girl and not to find fault with her. "Now then, Spitfire," said Tom. "What did you cut it off for, then?" "I shall go down. I can smell the dinner going in." He hurried downstairs and left poor Maggie to that bitter sense of the irrevocable, which was almost an everyday experience of her small soul. She could see clearly enough now the thing was done, that it was very foolish, and that she should have to hear and think more about her hair than ever. "Maggie, you little silly," said Tom, peeping into the room 10 minutes after. "Why don't you come and have your dinner? There's lots of goodies, and mother says you're to come. What are you crying for, you little spoony?" Oh, it was dreadful. Tom was so hard and unconcerned. If he had been crying on the floor, Maggie would have cried too. And there was the dinner, so nice. She was so hungry. It was very bitter. But Tom was not altogether hard. He went and put his head near her and said in a lower, comforting tone, "Won't you come then, Maggie? Shall I bring you a bit of poddy when I've had mine and custard and things?" "Yes," said Maggie, beginning to feel life a little more tolerable. Slowly she rose from amongst her scattered logs, and slowly she made her way downstairs. Then she stood leaning with one shoulder against the frame of the dining parlour door, peeping in when it was ajar. She slipped in and went toward the empty chair, but she had no sooner sat down. Then she repented and wished herself back again. In these lines, Tom is pushed by Maggie, and here the word Spitfire means a person with fierce temper. And the word irrevocable means not able to be changed or reversed. Now Maggie is left alone as Tom went downstairs to have his meal, and she regrets for the deeds that she has done. Now she thinks that she should have to hear or think more about her hair than ever. Then, after 10 minutes, Tom comes back to ask her and then tells her that she will bring after having his dinner. Whenever Tom used to cry, she also used to sit with him and cry along with him. But here Tom leaves her alone. Then as she is hungry, she comes downstairs and slipped in and went towards the empty chair. So students, that's all for today's class. I hope you understood. And if you have any doubts, you can ask me in the WhatsApp group. And the remaining part we will do in the next class.